Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Israel has carried out its first known strike against Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed the attack was a wholly independent and Israeli operation, emphasizing that Israel initiated, conducted, and takes full responsibility for it. Welcome to Q News for our up-to-the-minute coverage of this developing story. Moving on, Egypt has strongly condemned Israel's strike on Qatar, calling it a blatant violation of international law and sovereignty. In a statement, the Egyptian presidency denounced today's Israeli attack that targeted a meeting of Palestinian leaders in Doha aimed at reaching a ceasefire in Gaza. Cairo described the assault as a dangerous precedent and a direct aggression against Qatar, which plays a pivotal role in mediation efforts. Egypt warned the escalation undermines international de-escalation efforts and threatens regional stability. Meanwhile, Cairo confirmed, or rather reaffirmed, its full solidarity with Qatar and urged the international community to act swiftly to halt the Israeli aggression and hold those responsible accountable. Egypt has condemned Israel's blatant aggression against Qatar, calling it a flagrant violation of international law and the UN Charter. In a Foreign Ministry statement, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry stated that Qatar's security and stability are a cornerstone of Arab national security. It warned that the Israeli attack reflects a deliberate intent to destroy all the chances for de-escalation and peace, cautioning that Israel's reckless policy aims to expand the conflict. The Arab League has strongly condemned Israeli strikes on residential areas in Doha, voicing full solidarity with Qatar. Secretary General Ahmed Abul-Gheit said that the attacks were a blatant violation of Qatar's sovereignty. His spokesperson, Jamal Rushdie, stressed that Israel continues its policy of escalation and destruction despite Cairo and Washington's efforts for a Gaza ceasefire. The Arab League affirmed its support for any steps Qatar takes to defend its security, holding Israel fully responsible for the consequences of its actions. For further analysis of the situation, we're joined from Cairo by Al Akhbar daily newspaper editor-in-chief, Dr. Osama Said. Welcome to Q News. Dr. Osama, how significant is Egypt's strong condemnation of Israel's strikes on Qatar, and what message does it send about Cairo's role as a regional grantor of stability?
Of course, this movement conducted by Israel is uncalculated, and it was hastily done by Netanyahu's cabinet, and it undermines the rates of promoting peace in the region, and also it undermines the efforts of the nations. Israel threatened a nation that has no enmity with Israel and the United States. This nation, Qatar, was working with the United States and other intermediaries in order to reach a solution in Gaza. Netanyahu doesn't want peace. He doesn't want to stop spilling blood. He wants to pull all the parties to chaos. And this cabinet of Netanyahu's, they are used to violate the international laws, and they are used to accountability being out of the question. And they often violated the charters of the UN. Israel is not held accountable for the crimes it committed. and they want to push the whole region into chaos with an uncalculated step that is hastily and unresponsible. It includes, it is based on a sort of madness that we are used to seeing from Netanyahu and his fellow right-wing fanatics.
So, sir, to what extent does this attack constitute a violation of international law and the UN Charter, as Egypt has stressed? What legal or diplomatic mechanisms are available to address it?
Of course, this attack is an outright violation of the international laws and regulations. Qatar has the right to protect its airspace and those who reside in its territories, or those who are guests. Israel violated the Qatari sovereignty and assassinated people who reside in the within the premises of the Qatari territory. These people who were targeted are not military people, even if they were aligned or affiliated with Hamas. They are not military personnel, they are political people, and they were going to a meeting to further negotiate on de-escalating the situation. So Israel violated the sovereignty of Qatar and showed enmity and war declaration. So there are no legal or those pertaining to international relations that evidences that can push Israel to commit what it did. This was green lighted by the United States, as reports pointed. This is also a violation of Qatar's sovereignty and a violation also to international laws. Qatar has to file a claim against Israel in the international organizations because its territories and airspace were violated, and the responses here vary from diplomatic, political escalation and diplomatic escalation, and moving within the diplomatic political routes, whether be it the ICJ or the UN Security Council, in order to condemn what happened and show a viable response so that the state attacked by the aggressor can secure its territories and airspace and its citizens.
So, given that the strike targeted a meeting of Palestinian leaders in Doha aimed at reaching a ceasefire, how might this incident undermine the ongoing Egyptian and Qatari mediation efforts?
Of course, this aggression on Qatar and on its territory is an unprecedented threat and a great undermining to the intermediation efforts done by Qatar and Egypt, and that is what Netanyahu is keen to do. He doesn't want the negotiations to proceed further. He didn't provide any intent or any will to go for a ceasefire to be imposed. He doesn't want a deal to be reached to finalize and conclude this war. He always tramples or tries to halt the efforts trying to put an end to the war. And he tries to assassinate those who negotiate. Netanyahu wants to give a message to all, and that he's burning all bridges that might lead to ceasefire and de-escalation. He will not stop or back down, even he will commit foolishness and attack an intermediary and a mediator. The Qatari response, I think, will be that they will freeze their role as an intermediary, and further steps will be taken by the Gulf states and the Arab states as well to put an end to this chaotic, because Netanyahu is willing to continue with this war and aggression. Qatar didn't have an enmity or anything to do with Israel. It is just an intermediary.
Egypt described Qatar's security and stability as a cornerstone of Arab national security. Sir, how might this framing strengthen bilateral relations between Cairo and Doha further moving forward?
Of course, the Egyptian stance is what we are used to see from Egypt, who looks to the security of neighboring Arab states as a part of its security, and the security of the Gulf area especially represents a great deal of importance to Egypt, because Egypt proudly boasts of great ties with other Arab states, and we have a long history and roles that show that we protected the Arab security system, and these bilateral relations have great roots, and there is also a great deal of agreement between the leaders of the two countries. We want the region to be stable. There is also a great deal of coordination between the two countries, especially after the relations were up again. So that's why the security of Qatar is a pivotal part and a cornerstone in the security of the Arab region as a whole, and the de-escalation in the region as well. So Egypt's condemnation of this blatant aggression committed by Israel is not only due to bilateral relations, but also that is because Egypt knows that the Israeli aggression is posing a threat to the national security matrix of the Arab region as a whole, and a threat also to regional benefits and international benefits as well. Also, it puts the Egyptian security and the Arab region security in danger.
What are the broader implications of such an attack for regional security, in your own opinion, particularly for Egypt, which is directly invested in preventing further escalation in Gaza and the wider Middle East?
This attack will have great impacts. It will pose it will put a stop to the normalization deals and the diplomatic ties between Arab states and Israel. You know, in the Abraham deal, the Emirates, for example, was starting to build normal relations with Israel, and the other Gulf states will stop doing that because of this unprecedented aggression against a Gulf state, and it will lead to a freeze between the ties between Israel and the Gulf states, and will further delay the normalization between other Gulf states and Israel. It will also damage the relations between the Gulf states and the United States in the future, because several reports point that the United States gave a green light to Netanyahu to commit the aggression he committed on the regional. I presume it embodies a very negative message. It means that Israel is now a rabid state that does not give any weight to international relations, and that is now targeting states that do not possess any enmity towards Israel, and that Israel are bearers of calamity and chaos in the region. Not only the states who say that we have, like the case in Lebanon, Israel is now, unlike the case in Lebanon, Israel is targeting other states who do not have, who Israel doesn't have any alibi for attacking, because Qatar doesn't own a militia who is threatening Israel, for example. So Israel's current actions, are a great threat to the nation, to the region as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was Dr. Osama Saeed joining us from Cairo. He is Al Akhbar Daily newspaper editor-in-chief. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Moving on, Qatar said that the situation in Doha is now secure after an Israeli strike targeted a Hamas residence in the capital. The Qatari Interior Ministry announced that security has been restored in Doha following the Israeli attack. In a post on X, the ministry confirmed that the strike targeted a Hamas residence and said that specialized teams are on the ground conducting investigations. Authorities reassured the public that there is no ongoing threat. Qatar has strongly condemned Israel's strike in Doha, calling it a flagrant breach of international law. The Qatari Foreign Ministry said that the attack, which targeted members of Hamas's political bureau in a residential area of the capital, was a blatant violation of sovereignty and international law. The statement warned that Qatar will not tolerate what it described as Israel's reckless behavior, stressing that any threat to the country's security also endangers stability across the wider region. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar has lifted its security alert for staff following the Israeli strike in Doha. In a statement, the embassy said that the shelter-in-place order for American personnel has been lifted, though officials will continue monitoring the situation and issue updates if needed. It stressed that Qatar remains a key U.S. ally in the Middle East, hosting Al Udeid Air Base, the largest American military facility in the region. Washington was informed in advance of Israel's strike in Doha that targeted senior Hamas leaders. Two U.S. officials confirmed the Trump administration was notified before Israel launched the attack on the Qatari capital. An Israeli official also said that Washington had prior knowledge. The White House, with Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, has been engaged in ongoing negotiations between Israel and Hamas aimed at reaching a ceasefire deal. In a speech, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed the authorization that he gave authorization to the assassination of Hamas leaders following attacks in Gaza and Jerusalem. He stated that Israel will continue the war to enhance its security and that an operational opportunity arose today, which they acted upon. Netanyahu affirmed that the war could end tomorrow, but only on Israel's terms, and that they have agreed to the foundations of the Trump plan. He concluded by taking full responsibility for the targeting of Hamas leaders in Qatar. Israel said that its in Doha was an independent operation fully carried out by its forces. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced that Israel alone initiated and executed the attack targeting Hamas leaders in the Qatari capital. The statement said that the strike was ordered at noon after what it called an operational opportunity. Netanyahu described the action as entirely justified and affirmed that Israel takes full responsibility for it. Israeli sources said that the strike in Doha was months in the making before being accelerated recently. According to the sources, the operation targeted senior Hamas leaders was approved by Israel's top leadership and marks a major escalation in its campaign against the group. Israel has long accused Hamas of using Doha as a base outside Gaza. The attack also comes amid heightened tensions following recent assaults in Jerusalem and Gaza. Israeli officials have responded positively after the Israeli occupation forces carried out a strike targeting Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich stated that terrorists have what he termed as terrorists have no immunity from Israel's reach anywhere in the world. And he also praised the decision and execution of the operation by the Israeli occupation forces and Shin Bet. Opposition leader Yair Lapid commended the military and security forces for carrying out an exceptional operation aimed at thwarting Israel's enemies according to their own terms. Far-right Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir described the strike as a historic decision, emphasizing that Jewish lives will no longer be disregarded and highlighting the action as retaliation for the October 7th massacre. The Israeli occupation forces has announced that they carried out a precise strike targeting senior Hamas leaders. The statement did not specify the location of the operation. It emphasized that measures were taken to minimize civilian harm, including the use of precise munitions and additional intelligence prior to the strike. For further analysis, we're joined from Tunisia by the Israeli affairs researcher, Dr. Yahya Qaoud. Welcome to Qnews, Dr. Qaoud. How does the survival of the Hamas delegation led by Dr. Khalil al-Hayya shape the movement's political and negotiation stance after the strike?
It will be more knowing of what is going on inside Gaza, but he's always connected, of course, with what occurs in Gaza, the genocide, the continued killings, and he will now know that these killings might reach a region outside the Gaza Strip. You know, as Haniya was assassinated in Tehran. This is the first message. The second is the occupation doesn't respect anything of the international community and doesn't see any power other than America. That's why they attacked Doha under the eyes and the ears of all the world, and the United States, of course, holds its share of liability in what happened. And the Israelis want to say that we are capable of doing anything, anytime, as we wish. And we can assassinate and conduct assassinations in many ways. For example, what they did with many people in the past, and when they assassinated al-Mabhouh, for example, Therefore, there are many messages on the international level in this assassination attempt and in this aggression. They do not want any condemnation from the Western world. The question is, did they only want to strike the houses of the leaders of Hamas outside, or why did the operation fail? These questions and many more points need detailed investigation and analysis. They struck the house and the of Khalil al-Hayy, his aide, and other delegates. This operation was rendered a failure, and they only want to receive their detainees.
Sir, what does the targeting of Hamas leaders in Doha indicate about Israel's strategic calculus, and how might this affect ongoing ceasefire and mediation efforts?
If we look at the outcome of the negotiation since the start of since the beginning of the genocidal operation committed by the Israelis from October 8th, and now we are about to enter the third year of this genocide, Netanyahu is the one always writing down new conditions in every negotiation to halt and stop the negotiations. When you see they're dealing with the Witkoff suggestion, Aviv did not answer when they received the draft. They said that Hamas, on the other hand, had a positive response. Trump said this is the final warning to Hamas and their final chance to redeem themselves. So attacking Doha will not be conducted without having the permission and the green light of the United States. Netanyahu is essentially wants to target the leaders in person, directly. This is a message he wanted to deliver. We have at least 2 weeks until Hamas starts arranging its political cards. They want to occupy the Gaza city. So if there are any conditions, new conditions to be added to the deal, the proposed deal, Netanyahu is only looking forward to forcefully displace the Palestinians or simply kill the idea of the Gaza being autonomous or independent. Netanyahu is imposing his conditions and terms through this operation against Qatar, because he saw Qatar's role as an intermediary and a mediator. Now the Palestinians have only one way to go, either to Cairo or either to the United States, and have 2 weeks till the negotiations restart. And what's left of the Gaza Strip is now facing a monstrous force and a genocide like no other, unprecedented. And through the assassination attempt, we can foresee what Netanyahu is planning. He and his cabinet of warmongers are planning. We can see what they want to do.
Well, that was Dr. Yahya Qaoud joining us from Tunisia. He is a researcher in Israeli affairs and an Egyptian Council member. for Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our special coverage for tonight. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to always stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you so much for watching.